Today I want to cover 5 basic photography terminology terms. One of you guys have actually reached out and has asked me what the hell a leading line is. All this photography knowledge, you know nothing about it. And that's fair, it's fine. Quick and easy, I'm just gonna go over some of the 5 ones that I normally use and what you would hear. Number 1, composition. You cannot take a good photo if you don't have composition, and it's the first thing that I learned, and it's the easiest thing you'll learn because it's literally on your phone. The best way to explain it is that you'll have these rule of thirds that you can apply onto your camera. Pretty much it's as simple as putting your subject in one of those 4 corners. That's it. If you've got a mountain range, then maybe put it on the top right, for example, and the horizon smack in the middle. Or you can have a person on the 2 left ones and then the landscape on the right. As long as that person is facing into the image, it actually turns into something very interesting. Now, obviously you can break it a little bit, put people dead center, and that just conveys a different mood. Basically makes or breaks a good photo, and if you master it, then you will be taking professional photos, hands down. Just look at the rule of thirds, look at those little squares, put whatever you want that's interesting in those squares, and you're on the right path. Number 2, and there is a bonus one at the end of this video, so stick around. Number 2 is exposure. I say this all the time because I either always fuck it up or I get it smack on and I get really excited about it and I have to talk about it. Exposure is quite literally how bright or dark the image is, and for a technical standpoint, it's how much light is hitting the sensor. If it is too bright, the image gets way too overexposed, and if it's too dark, then it gets too underexposed. And with editing, you can kind of balance it out. With mirrorless cameras nowadays, you can actually see the exposure in your screen, so before you take the photo, you know if it's good or not. Number 3 is leading lines, and one of you guys have actually asked me about this. It was in my video reacting to a blind photographer. Essentially, a leading line is anything that's in the image that is directing your eye to a certain subject or point in the image. It could be quite literally the footpath on the street, or those lines in the middle, train tracks, or the water's edge. You kind of get the drift. Preferably, and this goes in with composition, preferably the line leads into the subject, and that is where you get a very nice image, especially if you put the leading line either in the center or maybe on one of those 4 corners, and then you can see it actually go towards the subject that you have framed perfectly because you have listened to step number 1. Number 4, noise. And you're probably asking yourself, what the fuck does that have to do with a photo? Let me explain. Noise is essentially grain in the image. You know your old film cameras or your Polaroids? That has real grain. That's good grain. We like that type of grain. The noise is the amount of pixels on the sensor, and essentially every sensor has a threshold. If you bump your ISO up to a point where it's too sensitive for the camera to handle, then you'll start to see a lot of grain or noise. You probably don't know what ISO means. I might make another video for that. If you guys actually enjoy this, let me know down below. I can make a part 2, we can keep going through terminologies, and I can actually teach you about ISO. Number 5 is focal length. Stick around, we still have a bonus one to cover. So focal length is essentially like the magnification of a lens. You've got your wide angle, you've got your telephoto, and then you have your zoom lenses. Now, all these lenses, and I'm also talking about camera ones as well, they have a number next to them. So this one is a 20mm. I have a zoom lens which is a 24 to 70, so I have a range between wide and then telephoto. Even your camera, your super wide usually is about 12mm, and then your telephotos, your 3x is about like 70mm, and I don't know, if it keeps going up from that, then you can go into 200mm, which is a super telephoto. I got one photo that's a 200mm. I rented this camera out for a client, and I got to spend at least one afternoon with my motorbike. So this is the photo at 200mm. It's essentially how far the lens can capture. It goes more in depth with this. There's compression in the image with the background and the foreground, and blah 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 blah. Again, another video, I can explain it if you want it. And the last one, to guarantee that you always get some banger photos, is golden hour. I know, you know about this, but there is also blue hour and then twilight. You know that there were different ones as well. Golden hour is essentially the last hour and a half of sunset. The sun is now setting and it's starting to bring in some more colors, and in the last hour, that is when the best photography always happens, and you'll always see me out during these times. But you know what I find? Whenever I'm at a landscape, I always find that photographers leave once the sun is set, and then everyone else leaves at sunset. And it's only me and maybe one other person who is always hanging around after sunset, and we know the reason why. It's because it's blue hour. Blue hour is such a cool time. The sun has set, there is no more orange in the sky, it's starting to get dark, but now you've got this rich, deep, royal blue that has just like skyrocketed through the sky. And it's at this point where there is enough sun on the horizon where you still get orange and yellow, but the rest of it is blue. So you have this really cool mix of sunset and blue and darkness, and that usually lasts about 2 hours after sunset. At that point it hits twilight and it's pitch black. You can pack up and you can go home at that point. This also happens in the mornings. The hour before sunrise is blue hour, and then it goes into golden hour, and then it repeats the cycle over and over again. If you guys would like to see a sunrise, check out this video here, and I will catch you guys in the next one.